Patches and Lily's Adventures. Lily hummed a soft tune as she brushed Patches's thick chestnut coat. Sunlight streamed through the open stable door, illuminating the swirling dust motes dancing in the air. Patches shifted, nuzzling Lily's shoulder. "Almost done, boy," she murmured, gently working the brush through a particularly stubborn knot. The scent of hay and horse filled the air, a comforting aroma that grounded her. With the grooming finished, Lily led Patches out of the stable and into the dappled sunlight. She swung herself onto his bare back, her heart lifting with the familiar thrill. "Ready for an adventure?" she whispered, leaning forward to pat his neck. Patches responded with a soft snort, and they were off, cantering towards the woods that bordered their new property. The woods were a labyrinth of hidden trails, a secret world waiting to be explored. Lily guided Patches through the trees, the sunlight filtering through the leaves creating a mosaic of light and shadow on the forest floor. They discovered a small, hidden stream, its water sparkling like diamonds. Lily dismounted, letting Patches drink while she sat on a moss-covered log, sketching in her notebook. Today, Patches was a valiant knight, his chestnut coat gleaming like polished armor. "You know, Patches," she said, looking up from her drawing, "I want to be a veterinarian when I grow up. I want to help animals, just like you helped me." She ran a hand along his velvety nose. "I know it'll be hard, and I'm not always the bravest person." Her voice trailed off. A sudden rustling in the undergrowth made her jump. Patches whinnied softly, his ears pricked forward. Lily stood, a knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. It was probably just a deer, but in these woods, everything felt a little uncertain. The HOA's unwelcome guest. Mrs. Crabtree's sensible shoes crunched on the meticulously maintained gravel of the community trail. She squinted, her gaze sweeping over the manicured lawns and identical rose bushes lining the path. Then she stopped. A dark, crescent-shaped indentation marred the pristine surface. Another, and another. Hoof prints. "Honestly," she muttered, adjusting her floral scarf. The audacity. Further down, she spotted Mrs. Henderson tending her prize-winning petunias. "Agatha, dear. Lovely weather, isn't it?" Mrs. Henderson chirped. Mrs. Crabtree forced a smile. "Indeed, though I'm afraid our lovely trail is being compromised." She gestured vaguely at the ground. "Some animal has been leaving quite the mess." Mrs. Henderson peered at the faint indentations. "Oh, you mean the little horse? Belongs to the Parker's girl, Lily. Sweet thing, that Patches." Mrs. Crabtree's smile tightened. "Sweet, perhaps, but hardly appropriate for a residential community. It's unsanitary, and frankly, unsightly." She sniffed. "I shall have to address this." Back at the Parker house, Lily sketched furiously in her notebook, Patches' gentle muzzle nuzzling her shoulder. Robert watched, his calloused hand shaping smooth stones into a border. "She doesn't like Patches walking on the trail, does she?" Lily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Robert sighed, placing another stone. "Mrs. Crabtree has opinions." He picked up a shovel. "We'll make Patches her own little path, right along the edge. Less impact, happy neighbors." He winked at Lily. "And it'll look mighty fine when I'm done." Lily managed a small smile, but her eyes remained troubled. She knew Mrs. Crabtree wouldn't be easily appeased. This, escalating tensions. The metallic clang of the mailbox door jolted Lily from her drawing. Patches, usually a picture of equine serenity, lifted his head, ears twitching. Lily peeked through the window. Mrs. Crabtree, arms crossed, was blocking Robert's path. Even from inside, Lily could feel the frost radiating from the woman. "Mr. Parker," Mrs. Crabtree's voice, sharp as shattered glass, carried on the breeze. "The horse. It's still presenting a problem." Robert sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Mrs. Crabtree, we've done everything you asked. The droppings are cleared twice daily. We've even lined the walking path with those rubber mats you suggested. It's the image, Mr. Parker. This is a respectable neighborhood, not a petting zoo." Her words dripped with disdain. "And the smell. It permeates the air. I can't even enjoy my morning tea on the veranda." Lily's stomach twisted. She pressed closer to the window, sketching forgotten. "We're doing our best," Robert said, his voice tight. "We're trying to be good neighbors." "Trying isn't enough, Mr. Parker." The HOA president is displeased. She's considering further action. Mrs. Crabtree's lips curled into a thin, satisfied smile. Lily's eyes stung. Patches nudged her hand, a low nicker rumbling in his chest, as if sensing her distress. She balled her fists, the charcoal pencil snapping in her grip. She wouldn't let Mrs. Crabtree win. She wouldn't. The riding crop. Lily's drawing fell from her numb fingers, smudging charcoal across Patch's adventurous muzzle. She hadn't even heard him whinny. Now, staring at the blood-blooming dark against his chestnut leg, a sob choked her. "Daddy," she wailed, scrambling from the stall. "Daddy, Patches is hurt." Robert, sanding a piece of wood by the fence, dropped it and ran. He knelt beside Patches, his face grim. "Easy, boy," he murmured, examining the jagged gash. "Looks like a whip." A clack of heels announced Mrs. Crabtree's arrival. She stood just outside the stable door, a polished riding crop held loosely in her gloved hand. "Mr. Parker," she said, her voice tight, "I trust you're controlling that animal." Robert rose slowly, his jaw clenched. The riding crop, glinting in the afternoon sun, seemed to pulse with menace. "Did you do this?" he asked, his voice dangerously low. Mrs. Crabtree sniffed. "That horse was trampling my prize-winning petunias. I was simply teaching it a lesson." She adjusted her perfectly coiffed hair. "A little discipline." Lily gasped, tears streaming down her face. "You hurt him." "He didn't mean to." Robert stepped towards Mrs. Crabtree, his hands balled into fists. "A lesson? You call this a lesson?" He pointed at Patch's leg, the blood still seeping. "This is cruelty." "He's lucky that is all he got," Mrs. Crabtree snapped, finally dropping her veneer of civility. "He's a beast, and beasts need to be controlled." The HOA's decision. Robert's hand shook as he dialed the non-emergency police line. He pictured Lily's tear-streaked face, Patch's raw, bleeding flank. But the officer on the other end was unsympathetic. "Animal cruelty is serious, sir, but a horse biting a shrub doesn't qualify. Call the HOA." He hung up with a curt click. The HOA meeting was held in the sterile community clubhouse, all beige walls and uncomfortable folding chairs. Mrs. Crabtree, perched on a chair like a queen on her throne, addressed the board. "That thing was destroying my prize-winning hydrangeas. I merely discouraged it." Her voice dripped with disdain. Robert swallowed his anger, his knuckles white as he gripped the chair. "Patches is gentle. She wouldn't hurt anyone unless provoked." Mrs. Crabtree scoffed. "A horse is a horse, Mr. Parker. Unpredictable. And frankly, out of place in a civilized community." The board members, a collection of gray suits and tight smiles, nodded in agreement. Mr. Henderson, the HOA president, cleared his throat. "Mrs. Crabtree is a valued member of this community and has always maintained her property to the highest standards. Furthermore, the bylaws clearly state that livestock is prohibited on residential properties. While we sympathize with your daughter's attachment to the animal, we must uphold the regulations." The ruling was swift and unanimous. Patches was a nuisance. Mrs. Crabtree was exonerated. Robert felt a cold dread creep into his heart. He and Lily were alone against a force that seemed determined to crush them. A stable of fear. Confined to the stable, Patches remained a shadow of his usual self. Lily sat nearby, sketching. The soft rasp of charcoal was a fragile melody against the backdrop of the horse's labored breathing. He fidgeted, his once sparkling eyes now clouded with apprehension. "Easy, boy," she soothed, gently stroking the soft velvet of his muzzle. "You're safe here." But the words rang hollow, even to her own ears. The familiar barn scents, usually comforting, hay and the warm musk of horse, felt heavy, almost oppressive. She sketched Patches as a valiant steed in shining armor, a miniature princess perched upon his back. A fearsome dragon, a scaly terror, blocked their path to a towering castle. Patches, bold and indomitable, would, of course, prevail. Disgusted with the fantasy, Lily tore the page out, crumpled it into a tight ball, and tossed it away. It was a childish deception. Patches was anything but brave right now, and she, in truth, was just as scared. At the kitchen table, Robert waged his own battle against a formidable opponent, a towering stack of HOA regulations. His brow creased with worry, the lamplight reflecting harshly off his thinning hair. A stream of legal jargon escaped his lips as he sifted through the documents, punctuating his frustration with jabs of his pen at specific clauses. Nuisance ordinances, restrictions on animals. "The wording is so ambiguous," he muttered, rubbing the weariness from his eyes. Later, Lily discovered him still at the table, the papers now strewn around him like the remnants of a storm. Defeat hung heavy in his posture. She retreated to her room and slipped into bed. Snuggled on the pillow beside her was the stuffed horse she'd cherished since infancy. Clutching it tightly, she buried her face in its well-worn mane and wept. They hadn't just stolen Patch's freedom, they had taken a piece of hers, too. The beautification project. Mrs. Crabtree, armed with a clipboard and a voice that could shatter glass, orchestrated the beautification project with the zeal of a drill sergeant. Hydrangeas here, petunias there, and for heaven's sake, Jenkins, those marigolds are not facing the right way. Her pronouncements ricocheted off the newly erected picket fence, a stark white barricade meant to separate civilized lawns from patches less than manicured pasture. The real assault began with the arrival of the machinery. A backhoe, belching diesel fumes, ripped out a perfectly healthy patch of wildflowers, replacing them with meticulously arranged rose bushes. The incessant whine of a power saw sliced through the morning air as Mr. Henderson, under Mrs. Crabtree's watchful eye, trimmed a perfectly innocent oak tree into a symmetrical, unnatural blob. Inside the stable, Patches stomped, his usual gentle nicker replaced with frantic snorts. He whinnied, a high-pitched sound of distress, and kicked at the wooden walls. Dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight filtering through the cracks. Each screech of metal, each shouted instruction from Mrs. Crabtree, seemed to tighten the knot of anxiety in his chest. He pawed the ground, his dark eyes wide with a terror he couldn't articulate, the vibrations from the construction rattling his very bones. The sweet scent of hay, usually a comfort, was now tainted with the acrid stench of exhaust and freshly cut wood, a choking reminder of the chaos outside. The accident. The shriek of the neighbor's chainsaw sliced through the late afternoon, vibrating in Patches's bones. He hated that sound, the high-pitched whine that always preceded the brutal dismemberment of something green and living. Today, it was too much. He reared in his stall, the flimsy latch giving way with a splintering crack. He was free. Panic propelled him out of the stable and into the quiet cul-de-sac. Sunlight blinded him momentarily. He pawed the asphalt, the unfamiliar hardness jarring after weeks of soft earth. He needed to get away from the noise, the vibration, the awful, metallic tang that filled the air. Then he saw her. Mrs. Crabtree, immaculate in a lemon-yellow dress and matching hat, was inspecting Mrs. Henderson's petunias, her mouth pursed in disapproval. Honestly, Gladys, her voice, sharp as shattered glass, carried across the street. Fuchsia clashes horribly with salmon. Some people have no sense of aesthetics. Patches, his eyes wide and unfocused, thundered down the street. He saw her too late. Good heavens! Mrs. Crabtree exclaimed, spotting the approaching mass of horseflesh. She barely had time to register the wild look in his eyes before he was upon her. One moment she was lecturing on horticultural crimes. The next she was airborne, a brief, undignified flurry of yellow fabric and pearls before she slammed into the unforgiving pavement. The air rushed from her lungs in a whoosh. The world tilted, the perfect blue sky dissolving into a swirling gray. A sharp, white-hot pain seared through her spine. Peace in the woods. The flashing police lights painted the woods in strobing blues and reds. Lily huddled next to Patches, the horse's warm flank a comforting presence against the chill of the evening. Officers moved with grim efficiency, their voices low and serious as they examined the trampled flower beds and the uprooted rose bushes. Lily watched, her stomach twisting with each click of a camera shutter. Detective Reynolds, a woman with kind eyes and a weary smile, approached Lily. "Honey, I need to ask you a few more questions, okay?" Lily nodded, her throat tight. Patches shifted, nudging Lily's arm with his velvety nose. A week later, the official report came. Accidental fall. Contributing factors: uneven terrain, overgrown shrubbery, and advanced age. Mrs. Crabtree was never seen in the neighborhood again. Her pristine lawn, once the envy of the HOA, slowly succumbed to the whims of nature, wildflowers daring to bloom amidst the manicured grass. Autumn painted the woods in fiery hues. Lily, perched bareback on Patches, rode through the trails, the crisp air stinging her cheeks. Sunlight dappled through the leaves, illuminating the path ahead. Patches' hips crunched softly on fallen leaves. He tossed his head, his breath misting in the cool air. Lily leaned forward, burying her face in his mane, inhaling the earthy scent of horse and autumn. She pulled out her sketchbook and charcoal pencil. "Just like the old days, Patch?" she whispered, starting to sketch. No manicured lawns, no judging eyes, just the quiet rustle of leaves and the rhythmic beat of Patches' hoofs. The neighborhood seemed different now, Kinder. People waved. They smiled. Some even brought apples for Patches. It was as if Mrs. Crabtree's absence had ushered in a new era, one where kindness bloomed more freely than roses.